A surpriser in disguise, standing in my way. Why, oh why? Always asking why. Needs to know what's going on. Under pressure, proving his existence, losing confidence, filling holes with anything but consciousness about himself. Greed is taking over for spectacular events. Information for the mind is stirring to the body.
Welcome to the Cosmic Reality Radio Show, where our hearts are our masters. Your hosts are Nancy L. Hopkins and Walt Silva. Producing the show is Colleen Kelly. The theme song is called Disturbance and is written and performed by Renate Jet and Jet Music. You are listening to Wolf Spirit Radio at wolfspiritradio.com.
Emotionally undercover for a lover overdressed. The cycle is created long before you start to think. At the blink, it's your decision what you do. No clue for the Foo Fighters.
Alrighty, and we are live. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Colleen. No Walt tonight. Apparently he's lost his power. So, this is Cosmic Reality Radio Show. It's being produced by Colleen Kelly of Wolf's, Haggy Shack Radio, which is haggyshack.com. And it's being simulcast over wolfspiritradio.com. You can donate to either of these sites, or you can even, excuse me, hold one, I gotta clear this. Okay. Geez, see, I haven't talked to anybody all day. So I haven't even been talking to the dog or the cat because I was doing, store stuff. I was putting pendants and photographs and all that sort of thing up. So, and then I'm figuring, well, I'm going to talk to Walt. You can go to the archives and you can become a member and you can go to the archives for $5 a month. And it's a reoccurring charge. It's not automatically put on your credit card. So anyway, so I'm thinking, oh, well, Walt and I will just have a chat, and I would probably pull up the Cosmic Reality rules that we haven't actually got to yet. And now he's not even here. So if there's anybody out there that wants to come on the show and chat, just contact Colleen through Skype. Unfortunately, the phone's become a problem, so if you can just contact her through Skype, we'll try to do that. How you been, Colleen? What's happening in your life? I haven't even talked to you in a few days.
I'm doing just fine. I've been playing around with some of the graphics and making videos, especially for the introduction part of some of the shows that I've been putting up on YouTube. And I had some requests to do some of the shows that Sandy was on, Sandy Jones, to put those up. So I worked on that for a bit. I really enjoy doing all the graphic kind of stuff.
Now, are you using that program I sent you?
For the Filmora thing.
Yeah.
I started in on it with the Filmora, but there's kind of a learning curve.
Oh.
For me. So I just put it together using, the Windows, Media something or other.
Yeah. Media Builder, I think so.
Yeah. Because I'm familiar with that one. So that's what I used. And, I tried to put some humor in, especially, like, cause we have goofs sometimes. So instead of taking out the bloopers, I left them in, but made little graphics, kind of fun things. Just left them in, cause this is live radio, stuff happens.
Oh, that's so much fun. The Fillmore, program I found pretty intuitive, but I was saying to somebody, well, I shouldn't say that because it's intuitive to me because I've worked with that kind of concept of editing. And so I understood it, but I could see where that could cause a problem because it caused me a lot of problems in the first program. I'm like, what do they want me to do? Playing with videos and putting things together like that can be a great time.
Oh, it is. It is. And I can use my creativity there. I mean, even though things are already drawn and all that, it's not like I'm painting or anything, but it's fun.
And it is creative. I mean, it really is a creative endeavor. And I know that because the first program that I did with that program, I went through 4 hours in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
I look at the clock and I went, oh my God, it was 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yep. Cause I think I spent 18 hours on one.
Wow.
Yeah. And just 10 minutes of video.
Oh my.
Yeah. So I was like, it would be nice to be able to do that for all of them, but geez, they'd be a year old by the time I got any amount of them done at all.
That's the Virgo in you.
Oh, well, it is, because I'm like, oh, that don't look right. I need to move this here and, that perfection kind of sort of thing. And then finally I just say, okay, fine, I'm done.
I just, I do it like, does that work? Is that the message good? Cause what happens is I've been doing this for so long, writing for other people for so long, that I know no matter what I do, somebody's going to have something to say about it. And so I just don't worry about it. I just put it up. I'd rather be done than perfect. And I was thinking about that Fillmore program because it's not, I mean, I can see myself getting very, very fast with it. And what I would like to do, because I can't find, and this seems odd, I cannot find a program that will take our MP3s or MP4s of the shows and transcribe it into written text. You'd think that's there, but I've looked and I've looked and I've looked and it's just not there. You think it is in Dragon and some of these others, but then you find out, no, it's not really that way. Over when you're doing the voice stuff, so recording an MP3. It's one thing if you're doing it voice in. It's another thing if it's a recording. It can't quite figure out the voicing and, doesn't, so you get those problems. But I really want to go back over what we've done in the last 2 years to try to bring it together, because that's what I do. I was trained as a military briefer. I like to take the whole package and make it something that you can see in a snapshot. And when I started playing with these video things, I thought, hey, this might work, because I can go back through the shows and pick out those things that are, because there's a lot of storylines that continue down through the various shows.
Mm-hmm.
Djinn, we start out with a Djinn, then we get the Djinn again and Djinn again. Well, I want to do a video presentation called The Chronicles of Cosmic Reality. And I'll just go through and I'll pull all these things together, hopefully get them down into snippets. They tell you that it's a 5-minute video is what works with people. There's a lot of people out there. One person said, if it's 6 minutes, I won't look at it. And it's very difficult to get under that 5-minute thing. So I don't think it's possible. But for me, it's like 20 minutes. I'll take a chance on 20 minutes. But when you get into hours and 2 hours, you gotta be a fan of either the subject or the people.
That you said that, I've noticed on, the YouTube videos, people's attention span, when they look at them, because you can go in and see how the average time that people have viewed your videos.
Uh-huh.
And at first I kind of got, depressed. It's like, geez, nobody's watching these or listening to these to the end. So, then I thought, maybe it's attention span, because people today don't seem to have the attention span that they used to have. And it may be this instant gratification society that we have now. So I was thinking maybe even cutting them up in 30-minute segments instead of, an hour or even 2, because that seems to be too long for somebody just to sit and listen to something.
Oh God, it's probably 10 years ago. They did a study and they found that if the average user of the web, the internet, if they got on a page and they couldn't find the next navigation point, in other words, they couldn't see a navigation bar or someplace that would take them someplace else, in 2 seconds, they would get out of the website. And I found that very interesting because at that time there was a lot of people were trying to figure out what was going to work and what wasn't working. And so, you very seldom would see a navigation bar at that time. It was buttons and it was, different kind of ways of navigating. But that's how they ended up finding out that if they can see that navigation bar when they open up the picture, that's why Weebly and all these building things, the websites out there, you always have the navigation bar at the top because when they come into the website, the first thing they see is the navigation bar. And that will keep them on your page. Now, if they can't see the navigation bar, they weren't even reading your home page. It was bizarre. So, yeah, to really understand how the person comes into your website and has to deal with what you're trying to present, that's, especially when you got one as big as I do. Like CosmicReality.net is hundreds of pages. Not just because of the store, but also the amount of information that we have on there. So, to try to figure out how to easily get them through that navigation is a continual learning process. I think I get it down and then I go, oh, wait a minute. And I start looking at things a little differently. It's tricky. It really is tricky. But the 5-minute thing seems to be pretty standard. I said to somebody, if I could make 500 5-minute videos and put them on YouTube, I'd rule the world. Because I'm probably right. If people kept getting hit with a 5-minute message, and got into that for 500 times, you'd easily have them. And I know this because this is the way they operate. They put these little coded messages in everything they do. And they kind of we get these coded messages and we don't even realize that's what they are.
You mean like subliminal stuff?
Not even subliminal. Okay, let's think of the be safe thing that I did, okay? I said be safe to one person. Alright? But that person said it to somebody else, and somebody else, and somebody else, okay? That happened only after I said it to that one person maybe a dozen times before they found themselves saying it. When they would leave, instead of saying, be careful, they'd say, be safe. And so I was watching it, because I knew, because they turned around and said it to me. And I went, they're saying it now. And it took about a dozen, like the FedEx guy, the UPS guy, the mail people, because you'd have different ones, people who are around you in the job. And I've done this before. This is not the first time I've done it. I've done these experiments before because I found it fascinating to watch how one person can make a difference just by continually repeating something. Now, when I got to this point with Say What, it was like I already understood the collective unconsciousness. And I knew that if I put that image out there in a certain way, it would burn into the consciousness in a deeper way. Like we were talking on Say What on Saturday about telepathy. It's the same sort of thing. It's like the collective unconsciousness has a specific frequency. Most people all people are attached to it with an uplink that is one frequency. Not everybody is connected with a downlink. They may be swayed by the downlink, but they're not connected. And when I learned about the collective consciousness thing, and it was actually during the writing of Cosmic Reality, I began to, as a trained telepath, say, well, if it's there, it's got to be touchable mentally. And So when I work with all these radio shows that we do, and all the talking that we do, I can actually detect. It's like an energy signature with something that's trending out of the super unconscious, the collective consciousness. So, where was I getting? Why was I saying that?
We were talking subliminal messages.
Right. So, the dark side knows this stuff too. All right? But, there seems to be a difference because the only way that the dark side can seem to affect the super consciousness, the collective consciousness, is through putting it into human beings who then upload it. They don't seem able to control it other than through a human being and uploading. I don't understand the mechanism, but it's not, when I'm in touch with it, there is no, for lack of another word, no mechanical or, what is it that they call, imitation telepathy? Artificial telepathy. You know, there's no artificial signatures that I see in the collective consciousness, which would indicate that somebody's able to come in from the outside and mess with it. So for whatever it is, it has to have a certain biological signature of a human being. Not something that's phony, not an AI controllable thing, not a, dark side trying to, but the only way they can get there is to work on human beings themselves, so that the human being formulates the thought, and then that feeds into the collective. So, from that standpoint, it's a good thing, because at least we're all still in charge. What do you think of that?
Well, honestly, I would need to hear all of that all over again before I can process all that.
Okay, I won't listen to the archive. Oh God. Yeah, because when the reason I'm kind of like even thinking about this is that Matty Ronan, who was somebody that helped me with so much in my research, because he was over in Britain and we both were looking at the same thing. So he'd get on and he'd find all these great websites and then he'd post them, and then I'd have to just go read them, figuring if he's already looked at them that they're probably something I should look at. So he's still doing it, but he doesn't realize that I don't have that time anymore. But he sent me this movie that was put together prior to the vote regarding Britain exiting the EU. And it's 1 hour and 11 minutes. I didn't get through the whole thing, but I got through most of it. And that's what I was watching happen as they discussed how the European Union grew into this dictatorial power. You listened to Jan and Bill. What did you get out of that conversation on Wednesday, or didn't you listen?
Well, it is difficult for me to listen intently while producing, because I'm answering questions in the chat and all that kind of stuff as well. I think that there's a whole lot involved in all of that is not so obvious to a lot of people, and because also I've got rather a suspicious sort of mind. Because, in my opinion, the vote would not have gone the way it did if those in power didn't want it to. Unless it was hacked by some anonymous sort of group to ensure that it did go through. So and that's an issue that I have myself, is trying to look at both sides of, or at least two sides of this coin on lots of things to see, to see everybody's different, how it could work, and I don't know. I don't even know that I can explain it.
Well, I can understand your frustration with it, but I just watched this movie. And what it did was it gave the history, because that was what I kept missing. It was like, I didn't have a firm grip of how it all had come about, because it's not anything I was paying attention to. Well, it really started with the, oh God, what do they call it? The common market. You remember the common market? You remember the word?
Right, I understand.
You know, and I had completely forgot that that's how the dang thing all started. Because, the Moors were saying, well, it started because it would, they were describing what they said, that it would, increase the ease of, the economy and trade throughout Europe. Right? But that was the common market. That was what was initially sold to the people, as this common market. So the barriers between countries came up and people could freely go back and forth and this sort of thing. But then the European Union, nobody seems to have voted on the change. Okay, you got the common market. But then the common market needed some kind of a governing body. And so out of that need for a governing body, they sort of started creating what became the European Union. And again, nobody's voting on this. This is just was sort of like the outcrop of the common market thing. Now, somebody's planning this, I'm sure, you know, but nobody's voting on it. And what they did, like this guy went over to Brussels and he gets in his cab and he says, I'd like to go to the EU building. And the cab driver turned around and just looked at him like, what are you talking about? And this is Brussels, right? Because there are so many EU buildings throughout Brussels that it was like, I don't even remember the number, but it was like hundreds, not dozens.
Okay, what is a EU building? What do they do? And all?
That's part of the EU, the bureaucratic apparatus that grew up in order to regulate the common market that became the EU. It's all bureaucratic crap. Nobody voted on it. They just started setting this thing up. So you got, at one point he says to the people, he says, who's the president of the EU? And nobody knew. But then he found out that there were 4 presidents because this is so insane. I mean, this thing was so insane. And I know I sound crazy, but I'm telling you. What the heck was that?
My phone.
Oh, okay. But I'm telling you, this, and they lay it out so well. I will, at the break time, put this video so you can go to it later. But, so this bureaucratic thing started growing, okay? So by the time this guy is looking at in 2016, right, they've got hundreds of buildings. They've got many, many dozens of things that seem to be, like they got a EU parliament. Okay, so he goes and he talks to a guy that works there, that is one of the parliamentary members. And he says to him, so what you're saying to me is that you are a parliament, but you cannot put up for law any kind of regulations or laws? And the guy says, nope. And he says, so what are you doing? And he says, oh, we just vote and say yes to whatever the hierarchy of bureaucrats have decided is the best for this economic,
for the bankers.
For the bankers, really, yes, okay. And so, but there's nobody's been elected. Alright? And then he goes into how much money these people were making. And, it was like crazy ass. It was like 1 out of 5 bureaucrats in the EU make more money than the guy that's the head of the British, what the hell they call it? Prime Minister. The Prime Minister of Britain.
Well, at least legally.
1 out of 5, you know? And so to make it seem like, alright, to even belong, you have to pay them money. Okay, you've got to pay the EU, that is an organization that is taxing you, but you have no representation because nobody's voted in. They get these jobs and they keep these jobs, and it's all designed to make the higher class, because it's a little bigger than just the 1%, the higher class very happy and content. Now, to look like they're doing something that's good, what they do is they give a large proportion of the money that comes into the EU to nonprofit organizations like museums and theater groups and whoever. I don't even know all of them. So he said that maybe about half of what we send to the EU ever comes back to us. But in the meantime, we get all these regulations. Now, I don't even know if I can remember any of them accurately because they were so bizarre that my mind was like, this can't be right, this can't be right, this can't be right. But he found, I think it was 31 EU regulations talking about a toothbrush.
What?
Yeah, 31. And the toothpaste, well, that's a little more complicated. It had 43 regulations. That was just one. I mean, it was one bizarre thing after another. Milk had something like 1,200 regulations. And there's so many regulations that nobody knows what the regulations are. Now, to give you an example of why the British would be absolutely insane to renege on this exiting the EU was just one example, and that was of the fisheries. Now, forever and ever, England has been, an island environment, and fish is one of the most important parts of their economy. They get the fish and they send it all over the world. That's what they had done for, their whole existence. So they join the EU, and the EU tells them that they're going to take the fishing area, the oceans, and they're going to divide it up between the French and whoever else is wanting to fish there. And so Britain, the United Kingdom, those people, they can't fish everywhere because now the EU has told them, no, this is your area of fishing and you can't fish anyplace else. And they were on what was the name of it? It's some port town that the guy that would been working there for like 50 years, he said that I think it was like 20,000. Was it 20,000 or 2,000? No, I think it was 20,000. 20,000 boxes of fishes were coming through this warehouse district and being sold and then sent all over the world. When the guy got there, there was the number of fish that are being brought in by British fishermen to be sold was less than 200 boxes.
So what happened to the rest?
It's all been taken over by everybody else. They can't fish it. And not only that, but the guy says to him, see, if you go out to the end of the wharf that you can see right there, and you go, not even a mile away, that's somebody else's area. We can't even fish the water that we're looking at.
Wow.
And so the EU comes back and says, oh, well, gee whiz, how about you just get out of the fishing business? So they were paying people, fishermen, money to burn their own boats.
Wow. That's like paying farmers to not farm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. And that was like, oh my God. I mean, how stupid can these people be? But they went back to, World War I, I guess. They went back to World War I and they started to track with how this all happened, because they also talked about the Magna Carta. And the Magna Carta was really a result of noblemen saying to the king, you can't keep taxing us without our having some input in this. And so it was the question of taxation without representation.